I was just looking at this small object. It's a relic casket, and quite a beautiful one. This one doesn't actually have a relic in it, but the people who own it hope that they'll be able to get a relic for it in time. Anyway, I thought, having seen this, it made me reflect upon the Buddhist tradition of relics. And so I thought I would share some of my thoughts on this subject with you. This is not so much about Buddhist doctrine, but more about sort of Buddhist tradition. And in different Buddhist countries, they've got different words for relics. One is dhatu, another one is sari, I think in Chinese, and sarika, which comes from the Pali word sari rika, which literally means body or a body. And there are hundreds, maybe thousands of stupas around the world, some small, some huge. And they all claim to have a relic of the Buddha in them. And there is even some people who tell me that relics can actually reproduce themselves. That is, you have one, and that if you pay respects to it and worship it and that, it may reproduce, so that you have two or more. Other people have told me that if you don't respect a relic, it may disappear and reappear in a temple where it does receive attention as worshipped. So what can we say about this? Well, there is no mention of relics, what people call relics, in the Tipitaka. In the Mahaparinirvana Sutta, the Buddha says, or at one point he tells Ananda how his body should be treated after he dies. And basically he asks for his body to be cremated, and then the ashes, in other words, what remained, could be buried under a stupa, perhaps at a crossroads, which was a tradition at that time. And after his death, there was some commemorative festivities in his honor, and then there were some claimants came to claim the remains, what remained after his body was cremated. And there was an argument. Some of the parties claimed we should have them because of this reason, or others said, well, we should have them because of that reason. And eventually a Brahmin named Donna offered to arbitrate between these arguing parties, and he divided the remains up as he thought was fair, and each person or group of persons who received some of the relics promised to bury them or to enshrine them in a stupa, and subsequently they did that. Now, stupas in those days are not like stupas nowadays. They certainly didn't look like this. They were, in fact, just a mound of earth. But in later centuries, they evolved into this quite complex and quite beautiful things that we see today. So that's basically the story. Since that time, relics have become a very significant part of Buddhist devotional practice. And I think we can look at relics from perhaps 3 points of view. The first would be from the point of view of piety. I've seen people coming to honor the Buddha's tooth in Kandy in the Dala Dhammika. And when you see the expression on simple people's faces, you can't but help be moved. Sometimes they've come from distant parts of the country. They bring with them flowers. Sometimes village women have spent their spare time making sort of mats of little pieces of cast off fabric, and they offer those. And you can't but help be moved by clearly the looks of piety and devotion on their faces. So that's one aspect of relics. But I think also we have to admit that, or acknowledge that there's another part of relic worship which is perhaps not so positive, and that would be naivety. That is a too quick attitude to worship anything that somebody is told is a relic. And so consequently we get all sorts of objects being worshipped and people believing that it's a relic when it's almost certain that it's not. So some time ago there was in Singapore there was a relic exhibition, and somebody insisted that I go. I went, and I came away wishing that I hadn't gone. So in some places they had great big glass jars, half a dozen of them, filled with what looked like glass balls or even marbles, children's marbles, and I was informed that these are relics. Most startling at all was one that I saw, which was about this long and about that round, and I was informed that that's a relic of the Buddha's finger. And there is, in actual fact, a temple in Singapore. It's called the Tooth Relic Temple. And it has what is believed to be a relic there. And the only thing I could say is, if you asked me, it's probably a buffalo or a horse's tooth. That's certainly what it looks like. So it would seem that there's a great deal of naivety concerning relics. That is, piety has been transformed into naivety and baseless faith and credibility. The people just don't seem to be able to stop and think, could that be a part of the Buddha's body? So that's another aspect of it. And the last aspect of it is, I'm sorry to say, but I think it needs to be said, is there is an aspect of fraud. Sometimes you're astonished to find out that the temple nearby has just got a genuine tooth of the Buddha, or one of the Buddha's hairs, or something like that. So that's really quite something. Wow, where did it come from? Where has it been for the last 2,000 years? How was it so easy to acquire? So in the art market nowadays, buying and selling of works of art, paintings, sculptures and what have you, the amount of fraud in the art market is huge. They say it's up to 50 or 60% of all the paintings and sculpture that is sold is actually fake. That's pretty shocking. But there's money to be made in it, and wherever there's money to be made, there will be dishonest people. So as much as possible, they try to find out whether a work is genuine or not. And the most important thing is to find out where it came from. Are there previous records of it? So if you just go to an auction house, Christie's or something like that, and say, hey, I've got this painting by Rembrandt, and they say, fantastic, where did you get it from? And I say, well, I got it from my uncle. Okay, where did he get it from? And so we want to trace its provenance. Where did it come from? How far back do we have records of this? So if you can't produce any records of where you got it from, or wherever the last owner got it from, or somebody behind that, sorry, we're not interested, take it somewhere else. But when it comes to relics, people just don't seem to ask that. Okay, I went to Burma and they gave me a genuine relic of the Buddha. Look, here it is here. Okay, where did they get it from? Nobody ever seems to ask this. So it's almost impossible in such cases to find out whether it's genuine or not. But of course, others will say, well, we told you that relics can multiply themselves. Or if they're not suitably worshipped, they disappear and reappear in a place, in a temple or somebody's home, where they will be worshipped. Okay, that's okay, but then I think if that is the case, we have to stop telling people that Buddhism is scientific. Because whatever this claim is, it certainly doesn't accord with science. No scientist will tell you that if you get a material object, that if you treat it in a certain way, it will double itself or triple itself. So whatever that is, it's not scientific. And if we're going to tell people about Buddhist relics reproducing themselves, we have to stop saying that Buddhism is rational, that Buddhism is scientific, because such a belief about relics simply isn't rational and it's not scientific. So I think we need to take into account these things. Then somebody's going to ask, but why would people commit fraud about relics? Well, I think that goes back to the last point, naivety. Clearly there are many people who will basically believe anything. They have perhaps a deep piety, but also a baseless faith. And baseless faith was not something the Buddha praised. In fact, in one place in the Majjhima Nikaya, he says something very interesting to his monks. He says, be heirs to my Dhamma, not heirs to material things. Or you could put it this way, inherit my Dhamma, do not inherit material things. Now, if we apply that to relics, relics clearly are, whether they're genuine or not, they're material things. It seems that in many cases, people want to inherit something material and are perhaps less concerned about inheriting the Dhamma, which is not material. It's spiritual. It's in the spiritual domain. Some years ago I heard in Taiwan, some monks came from India. They claimed to have had a genuine relic. And I saw some videos a friend of mine took while he was there. And the whole main square in Taipei, there could have easily been 100,000 people there to see this genuine relic. Did anybody ask where these Indian monks got it from? I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't think most of the people saw it. But I do know this, that those monks returned to India very, very, very wealthy. And the sad truth is there is an element of fraud, specifically for monetary reasons, around the whole coming and going of relics. Okay? So these are just some thoughts I'd like to share with you on relics. And I would ask people to consider, can you have piety without a baseless faith? Can you know, understand and practice the Dhamma without relics, whether they're genuine or not? Can you be alert to the possibilities of deceit and fraud and not encourage those things? If we want people to take the Dhamma seriously, we have to be serious about the Dhamma. And there are some things that are more important than material things. And as the Buddha said, inherit my Dhamma, do not inherit material things.